Good Friday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for July the 14th. Today, we are reading together the second half of the book of Ruth. We're reading together chapters 3 and 4. Thanks so much for taking time to read along with me on this Good Friday. I will get the text up on the screen and we will get to reading. Just keep in mind that this is all taking place during the time of the judges time period, which is a dumpster fire in every single way. There is little to no faith, at least that we've seen throughout the judges within Israel. And yet we are finding glimpses of faith here within the book of Ruth, where we have the woman Ruth, a Moabitess, who is a widowed Moabitess, actually, is willing to leave her homeland in order to come back to Israel and to support and care for her mother-in-law. She is showing great loyalty. She's even expressed statements of faith in Yahweh. And we're seeing how this faith is being worked upon, that God is going to use this faith in order to produce a great result. Working as well within the story is the good man Boaz. He's described as a prominent man of noble character, which certainly contrasts greatly with all the wicked, evil men that we saw within the story of the judges. Here we're going to see a man who has an opportunity to fall in line with wickedness, but instead, again, shows nobility in everything that he does. So let's read together here chapters 3 and 4. We'll have a short discussion about what's going on here and then prepare ourselves to get into 1 Samuel tomorrow. So reading here together then for this Friday, Ruth chapter 3 and Ruth chapter 4. Beginning in chapter 3 and verse number 1. Ruth's mother-in-law, Naomi, said to her, "My daughter, shouldn't I find rest for you so that you'll be taken care of? Now, isn't Boaz our relative? Haven't you been working with his female servants? This evening he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Wash, put on perfumed oil, and wear your best clothes. Go down to the threshing floor, but don't let the man know you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, notice the place where he's lying. Go in and uncover his feet and lie down. Then he will explain to you what you should do." So Ruth said to her, "I will do everything you say." She went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law had charged her to do. After Boaz ate, drank, and was in good spirits, he went to lie down at the end of the pile of barley, and she came secretly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. At midnight, Boaz was startled, turned over, and there was lying at his feet a woman. So he asked, "Who are you?" "I am Ruth, your servant," she replied. "Take me under your wing, for you are a family redeemer." Then he said, "May Yahweh bless you, my daughter. You have shown more kindness now than before, because you have not pursued younger men, whether rich or poor. Now don't be afraid, my daughter. I will do for you whatever you say, since all the people in my town know that you are a woman of noble character. Yes, it is true that I am a family redeemer, but there is a redeemer closer than I am. Stay here tonight, and in the morning, if he wants to redeem you, that's good. Let him redeem you. But if he doesn't want to redeem you, as Yahweh lives, I will. Now lie down until morning." So she lay down at his feet until morning, but got up while it was still dark. Then Boaz said, "Don't let it be known that a woman came to the threshing floor." And he told Ruth, "Bring the shawl you're wearing and hold it out." When she held it out, he shoveled 6 measures of barley into her shawl, and she went into the town. She went to her mother-in-law, Naomi, who asked her, "What happened, my daughter?" Then Ruth told her everything the man had done for her. She said, "He gave me these 6 measures of barley because he said, 'Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed.' Naomi said, 'My daughter, wait until you find out how things go, for he won't rest until he solves this today." Boaz went to the gate of the town and sat down there. Soon the family redeemer Boaz had spoken about came by. Boaz said, "Come here and sit down." So he went over and sat down, and then Boaz took 10 of the men of the town's elders and said, "Sit here." And they sat down. He said to the redeemer, "Naomi, who has returned from the territory of Moab, is selling the portion of the field that belonged to her brother Elimelech, or to our brother Elimelech. I thought I should inform you. Buy it back in the presence of those seated here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you want to redeem it, do it. But if you do not want to redeem it, tell me so that I will know, because there isn't anyone other than you to redeem it, and I am next after you." "Well, I want to redeem it," he answered. Then Boaz said, "On the day you buy the field from Naomi, you will acquire Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the deceased man, to perpetuate the man's name on his property. The Redeemer replied, I can't redeem it myself, or I will ruin my own inheritance. Take my right of redemption, because I can't redeem it. At an earlier period in history, or at an earlier period in Israel, a man removed his sandal and gave it to the other party in order to make any matter legally binding concerning the right of redemption or the exchange of property. This was the method of legally binding a transaction in Israel. So the Redeemer removed his sandal and said to Boaz, buy back the property yourself. Boaz said to the elders and all the people, you are witnesses today that I am buying from Naomi everything that belonged to Elimelech, Chilion, and Mahlon. I have acquired Ruth the Moabitess, Mahlon's widow, as my wife to perpetuate the deceased man's name on his property, so that his name will not disappear among his relatives or from the gate of his hometown. You are witnesses today. All the people who were at the city gate, including the elders, said, we are witnesses. May Yahweh make the woman who is entering your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built the house of Israel. May you be powerful in Ephrathah, and your name well known in Bethlehem. May your house become like the house of Perez, the son Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring Yahweh will give you by this young woman. Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. He slept with her, and Yahweh granted conception to her, and she gave birth to a son. The women said to Naomi, blessed be Yahweh, who has not left you without a family redeemer today. May his name become well known in Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. Indeed, your daughter-in-law, who loves you and is better to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him. Naomi took the child, placed him on her lap, and became a mother to him. The neighbor women said, a son has been born to Naomi, and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these are the family records of Perez. Perez fathered Hezron. Hezron fathered Ram. Ram fathered Aminadab. Aminadab fathered Nahshon. Nahshon fathered Salmon. And Salmon fathered Boaz. Boaz fathered Obed. Obed fathered Jesse. And Jesse fathered David. And that is the conclusion of the writing of the book of Ruth. All right, so to catch up from what we were seeing previously in the story of Ruth, if you weren't with us yesterday, remember that we are reading this text in the time frame of the Judges, as we mentioned. We have this woman, Naomi, who is a widow herself. Her husband, Elimelech, left the promised land, left where he should have been, and went to Moab to try to escape a famine, which may or may not have been a result of the faithlessness that was in Israel at that time. Remember, that was part of the covenant curses, that if you do not serve me, then I will close up the sky, basically. You will not enjoy the blessings that the land has to offer you. So they go over to Moab. They go with their sons, Mahlon and Chilion as well. Elimelech ends up dying. Mahlon and Chilion take Moabitess wives, which again, they were not supposed to do. And they end up dying as well. So now you have 3 women. All of them are widows. One is an Israelite woman out of pocket. She's not where she should be. And then she has her Moabitess daughters-in-law. She hears that Yahweh has returned bread to the house of bread that is Bethlehem. So she says, I'm going to go back. She starts to go back. Daughters-in-law want to come. She says, no. Daughters-in-law says, no, we'll come. She says, no, you're not coming. The one daughter-in-law goes, but Ruth, again, shows great loyalty to her. Says, I'm staying with you no matter what. So in the process of that, they end up coming back to Bethlehem. They come back to their hometown where they're from, and they begin life, a very difficult life. You know, having 2 women within this culture, both widows nonetheless. They were in very difficult circumstance. But Ruth was going to take care of her mother-in-law. She was a hard worker. She cared about her, and she dedicated herself to providing for her mother-in-law Naomi. So she goes to the fields and pursues to do what the law provides for the needy to do, to pick up the grain that falls after the harvest. She does that, and she just so happens, quote unquote, just so happens. I'm firmly convinced that Yahweh is certainly involved here in this. She finds herself in Boaz's field. He is a prominent man, but he's a noble man. He's a man of great character, again, contrasting with the men that we see all throughout the story of the Judges. Boaz takes her under his wing, cares for her, provides for her, because he is heard the way that she has done so and the way she has shown loyalty to Naomi. And he says, you should be blessed for this. So she ends up being able to gather enough for her and Naomi to certainly be provided for. Yet Naomi recognizes that this man is a family redeemer. So there might be an opportunity here for them to be further taken care of, really perpetually taken care of. So that picks up in chapter 3. And you can read this in a couple of different ways. Again, I tend to read it in, I don't know if I want to call it the least charitable way, but remember still, this is during the time of the judges. We should not be expecting for everyone to be pursuing things in the most godly, upright, virtuous, righteous way. We just shouldn't do that, which is why I tend to read this as being a scandalous scene that Naomi is setting up for Ruth to participate in. Remember that Naomi is a descendant of Judah, who comes from Tamar, who herself went about having a child in a scandalous way with Judah. So in all of that, what I see taking place here, and again, this is my interpretation of what's going on here, taking into account these various things, is that basically Naomi wants Ruth to present herself to Boaz, and in the process, almost a seductive type of approach. The fact that she says, don't look like a widow anymore, put on your best clothes. The fact that she says, go to him at the threshing floor, which was a place that was known for sexual activity to take place. The fact that she says to uncover his feet, which is a euphemism in so many different places for sexual activity. All of these things lead me to think that this is Naomi's intent. However, this is not who Ruth is. Ruth is able within this scene to both submit and subvert Naomi's instructions. She is able to present herself in a way that shows her own nobility. So she does everything that again, most of everything that Naomi tells her to do. She arrives, she's well dressed, she's prepared, she uncovers his feet, she lies down beside him, and she just waits. Boaz wakes up around midnight, startled, doesn't know who this is. Who are you? It's dark. Can't see who it is. Ruth presents herself to him as your servant, not the Moabitess, but your servants. Take me under your wing, for you are a family redeemer. She's asking, will you redeem us? Will you protect us? Will you, Boaz, provide for us? Now, he's already been doing this. Throughout chapter 2, we see that being the case. But this is going to make it official, and this is going to be a long-lasting relationship, and it's going to be on the up and up, which that's what we should expect from Ruth, for everything to be on the up and up. And what we're going to see is Boaz wants everything to be done on the up and up. He responds to her, and he refers to her that everybody knows that she is a woman of noble character. That takes us immediately back to chapter 2 and verse number 1, where Boaz himself is described as a man of noble character. So we see here two individuals who are both showing noble character, finding their way, again, I believe by God's providence, to one another in order for something good to come from it. Now, Boaz very easily could have just affirmed everything and taken the situation and run with it. But again, he's a man of noble character. So he says, I would love to do this, but there's someone actually who is a nearer family redeemer than I am. He has the right first to either accept this responsibility or to turn it down. And then if that happens, as Yahweh lives, I will do this thing. So that's the plan that's moving forward at this time. Boaz still gives her some barley to take back for Naomi, and she goes back to Naomi. Naomi tells her everything that's been done, and she says, he's not going to stop until this is figured out. Just be patient. Just hang on to this at this point, and we'll see how everything plays out. So the very next day, it seems, Boaz goes to the gate of the town. He sits down there. He sees the family redeemer, calls him over. Remember, Boaz is a prominent man. It seems that this was a man of great influence. He was well known within the town. That whenever he tells you come sit down, you come sit down. Whenever he calls 10 men from the city gate to come sit down, they sit down. And in doing so, he lays out for this nearest family redeemer the fact that there is this property needs to be bought from Elimelech's widow, and you're the family redeemer in line. Are you going to do this? The guy jumps on it right away because this is just more property for him. Yes, of course I'll do this. Well, he says, okay. Boaz says, if you do this, then you also have to take Mahlon's widow for yourself as well. And the way this would work through levirate marriage is that any children that would then be produced from Ruth would have the right of inheritance, would have the right of this individual's inheritance. At that point, he says, nope, I'm not doing this because that's going to mess up everything I've already done. More than likely, he already has children. And adding another child that wouldn't even have his name would just take out of what his children would have. So he says, no. I mean, really, if we're going to be honest, there's a little bit of greed here involved. He doesn't want to mess up what he already has and share with someone else. So this guy does not show himself to be of the most noble character like Boaz. And Boaz also, let's be fair here, he did set this up in such a way so that he would eventually say no. He does that. He sets it up in such a way in which he has ample opportunity to see this man's intentions. He sees him as greedy. He doesn't want to share and to propagate the name of Mahlon. So he says, no, Boaz, you go ahead and do this. So they go about this Jewish process of affirming an agreement involving a shoe and such. And then the elders of the people, they basically give a blessing. They give a wonderful blessing upon Boaz that takes place in verses 11 and 12. We are witnesses. May Yahweh make the woman who is entering your house like Rachel and Leah. May you be powerful in Ephrathah, and your name well known in Bethlehem. May your house become like the house of Perez, and the son Tamar bore to Judah, because the offspring Yahweh will give you, or because of the offspring Yahweh will give you by this woman. So a wonderful blessing is given here. That would have been a blessing that you would have given to basically anybody within Israel. You would love for nothing more than for a woman to be blessed with many children like Jacob's wives. You would want that to be the case. So they put this blessing upon Boaz and Ruth. She becomes his wife. They come together, and Yahweh blesses her with a child. She's able to conceive and has a child. And the women at this point turn to Naomi, which again, in my interpretation of the text, in my view of the text, Naomi is not a good character. She has not shown herself in any way, from my perspective, of being a very faithful person. You can go back to chapter 1. I understand that her situation is very difficult, and it's easy to lash out in that situation. But still, she has not shown herself to be a woman of great faith. She's benefited in many ways in this story, but it's not because of her faith, I don't believe. No, she is really set up against Ruth. She is represented as a representative of the spiritual environment of Israel at that time. She was a Jew who was not showing faithfulness, whereas you have here a Moabitess who is showing faithfulness. But even in the lack of faith that Naomi shows, she's still blessed by Yahweh because of the faith of other people. And again, she takes this child, puts her in his lap, and basically adopts this child for herself. Acts as if this is her son, because both of her sons were taken away. Yahweh is the one that's taken away. Go back to chapter 1 again. She says, I went away full, which was not true in many respects. But then Yahweh made me come back empty. So she sees this child basically as her replacement for the two sons that she took away, or that were taken away from her. But in reality, those at the end of the day who are seen as being the real heroes in this text, the ones that should be looked up to, it's not Naomi. And I really disagree. My Bible has some study notes here within it that just give you some insight and some thoughts about the text. And one of the things it says that Naomi, Ruth, and Boaz are all consistently portrayed as virtuous and honorable persons. Again, I just disagree with that. I don't think that's true at all. I think that's true of Ruth and Boaz. I don't think that's true of Naomi. I don't see the evidence within the text to show her being a very virtuous, faithful person, which is why the attention needs to be put on Ruth, and it should be put on Boaz, not Naomi. Now, what does this text show us then? What does it show us, especially with this genealogy that's left at the end of verses 18 through 22 of chapter 4? Well, this really gives us, I believe, the main purpose of the writing. Because the thought always is, all right, Israel's going to keep rolling. And how are they going to bring about, they have the great nation, they have the land. How are they going to bring about the blessing of the seed that's going to be a blessing to all the people? How is that going to take place? Well, it's going to take place through, again, faithfulness within the land. Even though much of the land during the time of the judges is unfaithful, there are still those little pockets of faith, that remnant of faith that God is going to use to continue on the story, to continue on the purpose of Israel. And who does that come through? It comes through Ruth, not of Israel, but of Moab. There's even faith outside of Israel, but within Boaz as well. So they are able to have this child whose name is Obed. And Obed, the text tells us in verse 22, fathers Jesse, and then Jesse fathers David. Jesse fathers David. David is representative of the kings arriving within Israel. Now contrast that, this man, who by and large was a man of faith. He was a man after God's own heart, made mistakes. Yes, we all know those. Those are infamous scenes in his life. But he was a man after God's own heart. Now think of the kings that tried to be kings within judges, who behaved like kings, even though there was no king in Israel and everyone did whatever seemed right to him. Think about those men that set themselves up as kings, the Gideons and the Jephthahs and Samsons and all the rest who are described in different king type of ways. They were not men of faith. But through these two individuals, through faith and through the faith of Ruth and through the faith of Boaz, we're going to continue on the story of Israel, and we will see a king coming in the future. So again, we'll just take a step back, and I encourage you to consider Judges and Ruth together. Look at these two texts, and you'll see very distinctly the difference and the outcome, the difference in outcome of those who have faith, Ruth and Boaz, and those who don't, all of those within the Judges story. And just know that even within this environment in which, again, wickedness and evil and disloyalty to God's covenant, even in these situations where that is pervasive, there can still be faith. And it might even come from the most unlikely of places, but it produces the greatest results. Faith surely is the greatest thing that God works with to produce good for all who serve him, and really for the good of all people, and to bring about the promises of God in every way. So for us, I just encourage you, seek a faith like Ruth, seek a faith like Boaz, be people of noble character, always seek to do the right thing no matter the circumstances, and God will work with that, and God will bring blessings upon us without a doubt, because that's what he does. He looks for faith, and he desires faith, and he loves to work with faith to produce events and to produce outcomes that bring glory to his name. If you have any further questions about Ruth in chapters 3 and 4, or again, if you want to do some deeper study on the text, you go to our website, loudoncoc.org, loudoncoc.org. Go there, go to the audio files page, audio files tab, scroll down to sermons. You can search Ruth, and that'll bring up a series I did a year and a half ago or so, where we preached through Ruth, did a lesson on each chapter, I think. So able to go into a lot more detail there. You can go there and check that out if you'd like to listen to some more information from here in the book of Ruth. Tomorrow, we're going to pick up in 1 Samuel. We'll read 1 Samuel chapter 1, read about Hannah and her story, and the introduction of the next real main protagonist within the Bible story, which is going to be Samuel. We'll be reading about him tomorrow, or reading about his beginnings tomorrow in 1 Samuel chapter 1. Hope you could tune in then. Have a great rest of your Friday, everyone. Take care. God bless.